Ways and means, hello. Hope everyone enjoyed their announcements. It is now 1:45 on second of month of April. And we are going to learn all about S218 and act relating to reducing fluoride contamination of state waters. And we are so lucky to have Michael O'Grady here to tell us about it. Michael, it's been a while. Welcome back to Ways and Means.
Thank you. Good to see everyone. You'd like me to put it up on the screen?
That would be delightful. Thank you so much.
This is Michael Grady with Legislative Council. I'm going to walk you through S218. This still might seem very familiar to you because last year you reviewed H86.
Oh, yeah.
Which is essentially the same bill with some minor tweaks. But it failed to pass the Senate. And it had been S29, then it was H86, then it was added to H319, and then it died. And to avoid the confusion about bill numbers, the sponsor in the Senate wanted it introduced as a whole new bill. And that's what S218 does. Generally, it establishes a program at ANR for the voluntary training of commercial salt applicators regarding the best method for applying salt to reduce the water quality impacts of chloride while also maintaining the safe conditions of travel and pedestrian walkways. And if a commercial applicator goes through the training program and is certified, they receive an affirmative defense that they would not be liable for any damages caused to a person by snow or ice if they were following the best management practices developed by ANR. This affirmative defense would also be provided to municipal salt applicators who did annual training with AOT under the local roads program. Part of what would be needed is money to hire a trainer or a staff person at ANR to do the training. Currently, there's contingent funding in the bill, contingent funding clause, so there's no appropriation, but there is a requirement for ANR to report back to you with a fee, recommended fee, depending on how they are going to implement the program, either through a contractor or through ANR staff.
Remember that very question from last.
That is the exact language that you added to H86.
I love that, how we're all learning together.
That is effectively what the bill does. I can go into more detail just walking through.
I think a quick walkthrough would be great.
Okay. The purpose of this bill is to address water quality impairments caused by chloride. There are currently 9 waters in the state that are not meeting water quality standards because of chloride. The way to bring water back into attainment is through a TMDL plan, but there's not much you can do for chloride other than regulate salt application, chloride application. So the purpose is to establish accepted standards for application of salt and salt alternatives in a way that it provides for safe conditions while also reducing the impacts of salt alternatives on the quality of the waters of the state. Then you see a new subchapter added to Chapter 47 of Title 10. That's the water quality chapter. Apply salt is what it sounds like, but it doesn't include for transportation infrastructure construction projects, because those projects sometimes need to use salt in a way that's necessary to stabilize the ground, stabilize infrastructure. And so this isn't applying to infrastructure construction projects. Commercial salt applicator is somebody that applies salt for compensation. Master is somebody who can train people within their organization about the BMPs. Salt is every version of chloride you can think of. Salt alternative is everything that is not chloride that's used for de-icing and dust control. And you get a definition of transportation infrastructure construction project. Then you get to the establishment of the program at A&R. It's voluntary. It's a voluntary program. This is not a mandate for commercial salt applicators. If they want to do it, they can do it. But A&R has a mandate on page 3 to adopt by rule best management practices for the application of salt or salt alternatives. And then they have to, in those BMPs, address best ways to use it, most efficient ways to use it, how to prevent it from entering waters, whether and how to calibrate and monitor your equipment, when sand is more appropriate than salt, record keeping requirements, model form, and things of that nature. They offer, once the BMPs are adopted, they offer training to the commercial salt applicators. Again, offer, it's not mandated. Upon completion of the training, the applicator is designated a certified commercial salt applicator. It's a 2-year term for that certification for commercial applicators. But on page 5, if you're a business that employs multiple applicators, you can get designated a master and then train people within your organization. The salt applicators have to submit annually a report on total winter salt usage, so the state has an idea. It's just a percentage of the users that are on what they are using for salt. ANR can revoke a certification for violation. And then you come to the affirmative defense. This is a little different from what was in H86. H86 was the applicator shall not be liable. This is they have an affirmative defense. And there's a difference. Shall not be liable means that the burden is on the plaintiff to show that the commercial applicator may be liable. And so there are instances where it's when you have that kind of immunity, your immunity, for example, legislator immunity, you have absolute immunity for things you say on the floor. People can't sue you for things you say on the floor, even if they're incorrect, because, you know, sometimes you say some things that are incorrect. And you can't get sued for that. It's an absolute immunity. Last year in 86, that was qualified. You had to show some things, but you got qualified immunity. But again, the burden's on the plaintiff. The concern in the Senate was that you were excluding plaintiffs from a possible remedy or making it harder for them to achieve a possible remedy for their damages. An affirmative defense shifts the burden to the defendant. It's something that the defendant has to claim at pleading stage. They have to say when they're sued, yes, I did that. I applied the salt, but I'm not liable because I met these conditions and I meet the affirmative defense. The plaintiff still gets to bring the cause of action. The burden's now on the defendant. The plaintiff who was damaged still has that opportunity to seek a remedy, but it's not it's not an intimidation for the plaintiff to sue, but you still give that commercial applicator the benefit of non-liability if they can show the things that they need to show. This was something that the Vermont trial lawyers requested. They are happy with the bill as it is now. And that's why it reads the way it does. So in order, so you will see that defense on page 6, that certified applicator or the owner or occupant of the property that's managed or serviced by the applicator has an affirmative defense against a claim for damages resulting from a hazard caused by snow or ice. If the damages were caused solely by snow or ice, and any failure or delay was due to implementation of the BMPs. It does not apply when there's gross negligence or reckless disregard of the hazard. In order to assert the defense, the applicator has to keep records of their application, when, where, how much. Then you move out of that affirmative defense. The applicators also get a presumption that they comply with water quality standards. We've all seen it. We've all seen salt run off of impervious surface into waters. Technically, that can be considered a water quality violation. But if they're applying the BMPs, that is presumed not to be a water quality violation. Page 8, A&R needs to do education and outreach. They can do it through their staff. And it also needs education and outreach to both the applicators and those persons, members of the public, who are using salt and ways that they can reduce the harm to water quality, pets, and wildlife from excessive application. When this bill was originally introduced last year, there was a requirement that municipal salt sheds cover their salt shed, and that created great consternation. And so that was removed. Instead, there's a report from A&R on what salt sheds need to be covered, or if they're too close to a water, whether they can be covered or whether they can be moved, and an estimate of what it would cost. It is just a report.
Last time there was something and not, there was something other than a report, right?
Pardon?
Last time this was here, it was more than a report?
When it was introduced, H86, when it was introduced, had a cover requirement.
Okay,
And people weren't happy about that.
some of the people in this room weren't happy about it.
Right. Because, I will tell you, EPA tried to do a national cover requirement about 15 years ago. And there was like municipal revolt. People were not happy because cover is expensive. All this does is require the identification of what salt sheds, what facilities need cover or need movement, and then estimate a cost. No mandate. And A&R has most of this information.
You need to say sand as well.
Well, technically it's salt and sand mixtures and sand. That's
Sand not mixed with salt.
right.
Yep.
Doesn't say if it's state and municipal, private.
No, this is pretty much just municipal facilities. You'll see that on page 8. Report regarding management of state and municipal facilities. The state facilities are all covered. This is really, there are a couple that probably could be moved because of their proximity to waters. But most of these are going to be municipal. It's not private. So no mandate. A&R already has most of this information, and you'll get an estimate of what it would cost to cover. And then section 4 relates to municipal applicators of salt. Those entities would also get the affirmative defense, but they would go through annual training. There are already many public works employees already do what's called the Vermont Local Roads Curriculum, which is something that AOT provides annually. Part of that curriculum will now include the certification for use of the BMPs, and then the municipalities would receive that affirmative defense for their employees if there was a claim that their employees caused damages from snow or ice. And so that leads you to section 5, page 12. This is the fee report. So there are programs around the country in other states that are already operating and doing this type of training. New Hampshire is probably the most prevalent one. And they started out doing it with third-party contractor, started doing it remotely. It got very popular. So they started doing it with their state employees. Section 5 contemplates both alternatives. A&R shall solicit interest from third-party vendors for the training and certification program. They recommend to you, the General Assembly, a fee to be charged either by the state or by a third-party vendor for certification. And after consultation, they'll be also recommending what it's going to be charged for municipal salt applicators. And any fee has to come through you. A&R can't just determine, say they're going to do with a third-party vendor in order to cover their costs. They're going to charge every commercial applicator X to cover that cost. They're not allowed to do that. They have to come get authority from you to charge a fee. Then page 12, section 6 is the contingent implementation. Every new program that's going through your appropriations committee and the Senate Appropriations Committee, where the appropriations is not in the budget, is getting this clause and will be potentially receiving appropriations during reconciliation of the budget, or will effectively be paused until next year, until potential appropriations in the next fiscal. The act takes effect on passage, but there are dates that are built into the substance of the bill.
Any questions for Michael?
The committee vote,
8-3.
Any further questions?
Did transportation see this,
Not this year, but to my knowledge. I thought they were supposed to, but not so far. Senate Transportation did, but House Transportation not yet.
Judiciary has seen it.
House Judiciary has seen it. Yes, it was in many committees last year. It's been in many committees so far. Probably will be in.
Representative Brady?
Any pushback from the truck drivers league or anybody in the towns?
The league has said that they would prefer the type of immunity that the state has, effectively a sovereign immunity, not just for this activity, but for all municipal activities. So they want the whole pie. They don't want just this slice, but they're taking sort of a neutral view on this right now. I did not see their testimony yesterday, and that was just what was relayed to me. But so far, they have not opposed this. They are coming in and asking for, honestly, what they've been asking for a couple of years, that total immunity for municipal employees.
Thank you, Michael.
James Duffy, Joint Fiscal Office. There's a fiscal note posted on the committee page, which I'm showing behind me as well. So I think that, as you just heard from Legislative Council, the important thing to understand about this bill as it's before you today is, without an appropriation, only one thing happens, because the vast majority of the bill is contingent upon an appropriation being made for those purposes. And as of now, the bill does not contain an appropriation, and the budget, as it passed the House, does not contain an appropriation either. So without an FY27 general fund appropriation, the only thing that takes effect in this bill upon passage is the directive to the Agency of Natural Resources to develop a report on the number and location of uncovered salt salt sand mixture, sand storage, salt alternative storage facilities in the state. If an appropriation is made to support this bill, there are essentially two buckets of fiscal impact. The first would be whatever the appropriation is to ANR and to AOT to support implementing this program. There are estimates from both agencies in the fiscal note for what their estimated costs of implementation would be. But I think of more interest to the committee is the potential fee impact from the bill. The bill as drafted would direct the Agency of Natural Resources to report back to the General Assembly. This is in Section 5 fee report with the recommended fee by January 15th, 2027 to be charged either by the state or by a third-party vendor that would provide these trainings for commercial salt applicator certification. The fee report, I believe, would also include a recommendation for any potential fee charged to municipal salt applicators who would receive comparable training through AOT's local roads technical assistance program.
Any questions for James? Seeing none. Oh,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed, it came in a little late, but the fee goes to DEC or ANR.
So the only action contemplated in this bill is the fee report, but if implemented, the fee would presumably support implementation at ANR.
Okay.
And then as well, potentially through the AOT's
Yeah.
local roads program. But those would be the two agencies.
That makes good sense, thank you.
James spent one permanent classified position. That's if the report recommends it.
Yes, that is if an appropriation is made for that purpose. The bill would, well, there's no position authorization currently contained in the bill. Implementation of the chloride contamination program would only be required if an appropriation were made. The agencies have provided those estimates that you see in the fiscal note. And yes, I believe both AOT and ANR have testified that they would require permanent FTE to support implementation. Yeah, one in each agency. And
but no revenue impacts right now. We will get a report and learn about revenue impacts in the
Correct.
future.
that would be subject to your future approval.
Anyone else have questions for James? Thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
Why is there a fiscal note when there's no money moving in any direction whatsoever? Is it just you had one drafted from last year and it was easy to update?
I think also we will typically, when we can, provide estimates for what a program would cost in an instance like this where there's a contingent section.
Thank you. Does anyone need anything further on this bill?
Madam Chair.
Does anyone need anything further on the bill? Okay, seeing none.
I would move that we find S218 favorable.
Representative Wazazak moves that we find S218 favorable. No. Representative Maslin seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing no discussion, the clerk, please call the roll.
Representative Brannigan, yes. I vote yes, it's Representative Burkhart, Representative Kigley,
No.
wasn't that it? Representative Fulton, yes. Representative Kimball,
Yes.
Representative Maslin. Representative Odie, yes. Representative Page,
Yes.
Representative Wazazak,
Yes.
Representative Canfield,
No.
Representative Kornheiser.
Yes.
We voted the bill favorable 9-0.
And I do remember a vote, a similar vote for this last time around, folks. Thank you very much. Charlie's gonna report it.
As long as it's not transportation, it's ANR.
It is indeed A&R. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. We're gonna take a break until 2:30 when Beth will join us.